Hello everyone, Raven Knight here. Last time we talked extensively about the Knights of For Honor and how they've been heavily misunderstood by Ubisoft and made to be the de facto villains. But I want to take a look at the other end of that spectrum. I want to discuss the samurai today and my issues regarding how Ubisoft has treated them. Now, I'm not going to say something as foolish as Ubisoft has made the samurai the de facto good guys of For Honor, because that just isn't the case. What I mean to say is that Ubisoft has done so little with the samurai that it's kind of hard to remember that they're even relevant. That's why I say here, and with no irony intended, that the samurai are in desperate need of some kind of expansion. And there are two major problems with the samurai right now we need to discuss, and we'll get to both. Let's start by discussing the samurai in the lore and in the campaign. According to the lore we have, the island nation of Japan sank into the sea as a result of the world-shaking cataclysm. The surviving samurai had to travel from place to place, seeking somewhere to call home, until they ended up in Heathmoor. What they didn't expect was that the nation of Heathmoor was already populated by the knights and Vikings, and they weren't keen on sharing. So the samurai hunkered down in their territory known as the Myre, a swampy and overgrown forested area that had plenty of natural barriers and defenses the samurai could make use of. The problem is that the samurai are few in number, far more so than the other two factions, and thus this land and this war is far more costly. Every death of one of their own is more devastating, so this forces the samurai to train harder, become more creative, and be more ruthless to their enemies. Now, when reading this lore, it does something unique for the samurai that we don't see with other factions. It creates an underdog. The samurai have easily the most hazardous territory, the lowest population, and are literal refugees from a faraway land. Don't you just feel bad for them? Clearly that was the implication Ubisoft wanted to make in this campaign, because in the campaign, the samurai were the unquestionable good guys and underdogs. Not only were we introduced to the samurai with the Vikings and Knights raiding their home and killing their emperor, but we even had our main daimyo Ayu unite the clans herself, with minimal effort mind you, and even convince the evil samurai leader Seijiro to join their cause.
The Emperor's champion. Heading our armies again.
I'm going to Ashfeld.
Consider for a moment that not even the Vikings turned the bad Vikings good in their portion of the campaign, because both Ragnar and Civ were killed by the raider.
So that's a no. Valhalla.
What are you doing among the Warborn?
You talk too much.
But Seijiro gets to redeem his honor. The samurai are demonstrating higher levels of honor, underdog energy, and, dare I say it, anime potential. Right down to the Emperor's champion being the one who defeats Apollyon in single combat. Now, contrary to what you may be thinking, I'm not salty about this turn of events. I mean, do I wish it were different? Yeah, I kind of wanted to see the Lord Warden be the one who defeats Apollyon, and I think it would have been kind of interesting that Ayu executes Seijiro for his crimes rather than spare him. I mean, it would have been a real good look at some different ideas of honor, but I'm not entirely against this. What bothers me, though, is that after this, the samurai have so little to offer us in terms of anything relevant. I mean, we of course get the Aramusha and Shinobi as new heroes, and the Harbinger year we get the Hitakiri and Sakura, and finally we were introduced to Kyoshin, but what do these characters really impact? What do they offer? Pretty much nothing. In fact, even the big samurai season with Maiko and the yokai really didn't impact much. Which leads to my first and ultimate problem with the samurai. They are reactors, not instigators. This somewhat goes in line with the samurai history when it comes to outside influence. When Japan closed itself off to foreign influence during the Edo period, the eventual arrival of Western influences and the reopening of Japan brought a lot of social change to Japan. Japan has often had to react to outside stimuli and interference. But internally, Japan spent most of its history in cycles of war, distrust, and feuds. And seeing as the samurai and For Honor have been in Heathmoor for over 1,000 years now, you'd think that, at the very least, there might be internal feuds with each other. But in reality, we see very little of that. The samurai rarely leave the Myre, they rarely interact with outside groups, and they often deliver nothing to the overall story. And this does fit with the samurai history of the closed nation in the Edo period, but as far as lore is concerned, it makes a samurai look both uninvolved and disinterested in the world around them. Consider, for example, that when the Hitakiri was introduced, her presence did not impact the outside factions until the Vikings invaded the Myre. Her whole event game mode was based on Vikings invading a haunted Myre village in which Sakura was residing. She did not pursue them, leave the Myre, or chase them down in the lore. While it is revealed that Sakura eventually joined Horkos, she does so little with them it's barely worth mentioning. And then with the Kyoshin, when they were introduced, which stirred you have to ask, what stirred the Kyoshin out of hiding? A drought brought on by an imbalance caused by the Chimera and Horkos War. Again, the Kyoshin were reacting to an invasion of their own territory and an imbalance impacting their way of life. Every samurai story or arc involved the Myre or the samurai being wronged or intruded upon, and the samurai react to it. And this is fine for a while, but it does prevent them from ever doing anything with nuance. Unlike the knights, who Ubisoft loves to treat as the invasive and crusading force that they are, the samurai are very much the passive group who don't want any trouble and will only fight when necessary. And don't get me wrong, that's noble, but it's also boring and doesn't make sense in a world entirely caught up in warfare. That would be like if you tried to tell the story of Warhammer 40k with a totally passive faction that didn't want war at all, and we're supposed to feel sorry for them when they get dragged into this world of war. Even the arrival of Maiko, the most recent big samurai-related season, barely involved the other factions. Give Bullthorn some credit, his actions at least impacted all of Heathmoor by bringing a Heathmoor-wide plague, but Maiko dealing with the yokai was largely focused in the Myre, and any other outside influence on that was left largely unmentioned. I'm not saying Maiko's lore is bad, far from it, but what I am saying is that the samurai seem to be a faction Ubisoft is afraid to let out and play. They have to stay indoors and can only invite friends over when they want to do anything with others. And that's a very bad analogy, but you should get what I'm saying. And no, I don't think it's because Ubisoft is afraid of stepping on toes. I think it has more to do with the fact that they don't know what to do with the samurai. So they go to the thing they know people can associate with the samurai, anime. Now, samurai often get relegated as the weeb faction, and I never liked this because there's far more to Japan than just anime. But it is very clear that Ubisoft does see the samurai as the anime faction. I mean, just look at Kyoshin, a character whose very existence and style is built around pop culture and anime tropes. And look at Shinobi, whose weapon and capabilities could only happen in the world of animated fiction. And in our most recent season for the samurai, we got Yokai and Jorogumo and Kappa. Hell, the special execution from that season was straight up using Naruto hand seals. And yes, I know hand seals existed in actual forms of Shintoism, but I'm making a point here, stay with me. What I'm getting at is the fact that For Honor can do far more with the samurai than they currently are. The samurai are more than pop culture and anime, and I think it's time to expand a little on their culture, outlook, and traditions. We can do this by using both folklore and history to help us, and I will prove it. Just like with the Knights and the Wulin, let's discuss my idea for an all-samurai-focused year. We will call this year Ein no Bakufu, or the Eternal Shogunate. This year will be largely inspired by not just one period of Japanese history, but several, focusing on the historical warring nature of the daimyo and feudal lords, and we'll have 1 new hero, 4 new hero skins, and 2 new maps. Excited? Let's do it. The first season will be called Yuki no Dome, or Alliance of the Snow. Ayu, the Empress of the Myre, has not been leading the Myre to victory over their enemies, and the samurai still suffer as a result. Some feudal lords and daimyo think it's time to look to new alliances and perhaps new avenues to victory. One such daimyo is a Shugoki named Otomaru. He decides that perhaps the Vikings should be suitable allies, so he decides to overthrow Ayu by allying with the Vikings. Otomaru will be the first hero skin of the year as a Shugoki who models himself off of Shutendoji, the famous Oni demon. He will meet a Jarl who agrees to sponsor him, and the two will launch an attack on the northern area of Ayu's border. Ayu's forces are able to stall them, but the fury of the Vikings works well with Otomaru and his viciousness. He likes the way the Vikings live and work and opens up his trading routes with the Vikings, creating fast allies. This season will see a new map acting as a coastal map that sits on the edge of Valkenheim like a beach. It will have samurai structures around it and be treated as an elimination location. This sudden betrayal will take Ayu off guard, but the betrayals are not done yet. In the second season, we'll call it Tomodachi Toteki, or Friends and Enemies. Ayu is panicked at the actions of Otomaru and his alliances with the Vikings, so she reaches out to Holden Cross for assistance. Now, Cross can't take sides since he's now with Chimera and not the Knight specifically, but he does put Ayu in touch with a local Knight Legion commander named Raphael. He'll be the new hero skin of the season, a lawbringer with a long history of war with the Vikings. He understands their ways better than most. Known on Ashfeld as the Great Lion, he wears a lion hide on his shoulders, and his battle skills are second to none. Ayu quickly forms an alliance with him, and a great civil war for the Myre is about to go underway, with promises of prosperity for the winner and their allies. Either Ayu and the Knights under Raphael, or Otomaru and his allies under the mysterious Jarl, and don't worry, I will reveal that Jarl soon enough. Now, you might be wondering why I'm focusing so much on other warriors outside the samurai if this is a samurai-based season. And the reason why is because right now my focus is to get the samurai out of the Myre some. The big issue the samurai have in the lore is nothing they do allows them access to Ashfeld or Valkenheim, and we need pockets of the samurai outside of the Myre so they can have more map presence. This alliance is the first key to do that. We need the samurai to spread out. Now, the third season will bring things back to the Myre, and we'll call it Shisha no Ikari, or Wrath of the Dead. The war for the Myre has been absolutely horrific. Devastation and destruction surround everything as samurai slice samurai, daimyo betray daimyo, and knights and Vikings battle for territory not even theirs. Ayu becomes blinded by her ambition and hold of the empire, while Otomaru is determined to see her removed. With the fate of the entire nation in the balance, a Hitakiri steps forward to put an end to things. Her name is Magahara Kirumi, a messenger of misfortune and death. She will be our new hero skin of the season, with a heavy yokai edge to her, not unlike Maiko, though far more nefarious. Though Jojoro Gumo is captured in the seal of Maiko, there are other powerful yokai waiting to be unleashed. And she is in fact using the blood of this war to awaken an ancient yokai named Otakemaru, known as a god of demons. Long ago, he was defeated and laid to rest in their ancient homeland, but the blood of this land calls to him, and she knows how to awaken him. And to help in this, she lays a curse upon the lands of the Myre in which the battle takes place, and this leads to a new map and Halloween event mode. The yokai are more than happy to aid in the revival of Otakemaru, so they swarm the battle to kill any and all they come across. After all, blood is needed to revive a demon of this caliber. In this game mode, you play against AI in a Dominion match, but there's a catch. The AI enemy team are all possessed demon husks with extra health. If you don't kill your opponents by execution, they will revive within 10 seconds with a shield, and this will happen again and again until you execute them. The enemies will be random picks, but they will all be demon husks. The goal is to still win the Dominion while fighting overwhelming undead husks. The map where this takes place is a new Dominion map in the Myre littered with bodies and small rushed fortifications and palisade walls. As the yokai keep respawning dead warriors again and again to fight the living, Ayu and Otomaru both realize that their war is being used for the gain of Kirumi. It's clear something has to be done about it. And now it's time for Season 4, called Chowa, or Balance. The Kyoshin are well aware of the situation, and though they tend to stay neutral, they cannot ignore the threat of Otakemaru's revival, so they decide to lend their support in the form of a cleansing ceremony to undo the damage done by the Hitakiri. The problem is that they know that if she catches wind of it, she'll try to stop them. So that's where the Jarl steps in. Enter the final hero skin of the season, Jarl Erika Ransdatir, a Valkyrie hero skin. She challenges the Hitakiri to single combat as a distraction to buy the Kyoshin time. This takes place for the first half of the season, but near the second half, Kirumi realizes the situation and attempts to stop the Kyoshin from their cleansing ceremony. The combined forces of the Knights, Samurai, and Vikings are all working to protect the ceremony. But what can stop the forces of the yokai on their way to disrupt the ceremony? What can stop these nefarious, bloody yokai when they no longer have the demon dagger? Well, perhaps a brand new samurai hero. You see, the thing is, the Kyoshin learned from last time when the Maiko situation happened that they can't rely on Maiko and her demon dagger to be the solution to every problem, so they started training in exorcism rituals and a specific group of warriors to help do it. Trained in the ways of the Kyoshin and taught in the way of Shinto exorcism and combat, they are the warrior monks known as the Sohei. Sohei rush into the battle using Nagamaki swords. These swords have longer blades than the katana and longer handles. They are Vanguard-class warriors who fight similar to the Kinsei, but with rapid dodge capabilities, and they'll be the first Vanguard to have a deflect into guard break like the Berserkers. These warriors are trained to battle the yokai and make short work of them, allowing for the completion of the ritual. The yokai are then laid to rest, and Kagami is forced to retreat from the battlefield. The Vikings and knights who join in the fight see the tensions have settled down to a degree and begin to return to their own territories. However, thanks to the alliances forged between Valkenheim and Otamaru and Ashfeld and Ayu, now the samurai have villages and homesteads scattered around the map, giving the samurai more areas of interest and conquest, which will lead to more alliances and future conflicts for the various factions. Now, I stress again that this isn't a perfect idea. It needs some fine-tuning, I don't deny that. But this whole idea was inspired partly by the various alliances and divisions of the Sengoku and Kamakura periods, and also the mythologies and folktales surrounding the Nara and Heian periods. I felt like this would be a really cool way to explore the samurai in a new and creative way. Now, I want to also address this before I close out. When I did my knight video, I was talking a lot about the importance of treating the knights with respect and not making them out to be villains. And I want to say this for the record. I don't have a problem with Ubisoft making knights villains, samurai villains, Wulin villains, or Viking villains, or any of them heroes villains, what have you. What I take issue with is the meaning behind it. If all you want to do is just make knight villains to piss everyone off, you remove a lot of the nuance and historical truth of these heroes. And while many would point out that history does not matter in this game, I would argue that while it may not be relevant to what goes on during the game, history can be one of the greatest tools to creating new ideas, and that is my goal with doing this series. I want to show how using historical precedents, nuance, folklore, and tales about these heroes and about their worlds and about what they do can create whole new ideas and concepts. With this samurai season, I want to take the samurai beyond just, oh look, the anime weed faction. Oh look, the total good guys who defeated Apollyon. Oh look, the ones who actually have higher honor than everyone else. I wanted to remove that entirely. I wanted to take a look at it in terms of what their folklore actually says, what their folk tales are all about, and also how they had a lot of dynastic issues. They had a lot of problems with their daimyos fighting against each other. There was a lot of mistrust. There was a lot of betrayal and nuance. I like the idea that they could go to Ashfeld or Valkenheim and ask for alliances. I like the fact that they want to see the current leader taken down, because that was something that some of them people wanted during the Sengoku Jidai. The daimyo were fighting for position. I like the idea that we could go to folklore just like we did with the Jorogumo season. I think the Jorogumo season was cash money S-tier lore, and I think we could do something similar to that, but keep digging deeper into that lore. Instead of just having Jorogumo and Kappa, let's explore some other demons like Otakemaru, which I think is brilliant, or Shuten Doji, who Otomaru is based off of. I thought that would be a neat idea, but the thing is, we need to push further to explore this. I think using the Kyoshin and having the new hero come from the Kyoshin and be an exorcist because he wants to be able to fight yokai just in case there's another issue like with Maiko's season, I think that'd be a neat idea. And before anyone asks, is the new hero gender locked? I don't really know or care. Let's make it non-gender locked just to keep everyone happy. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun making it. And as always, guys, I will see you in my next video. Take care.